Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday, April the 29th. It's been an interesting day. I mean, it's been a steady move up all day long, but it has been slow and methodical. And even though this doesn't look like it, these are, I wouldn't, anytime you can't get below the EMA like that from really right at the 8:30 open is when this trend started. We had what I thought was going to be a spike in channel, and I thought it was a real tight channel, but there's no doubt this is the upper, you can see that's holding prices every time, but the question is, where is the support or the trend line? And that part, it looks kind of like that. But I'm thinking it's probably down here, and the market's just been too strong to come. There just hadn't been enough selling to bring it back down there. And even though the buying hasn't really rocketed off that often, the selling is not. There just has not been enough selling to drive the market down. I think that's more the problem. Like right in here, nobody was buying, but nobody was selling, and then eventually a market that won't go lower goes up, and the bias is up today, and so off it runs for another one. And I marked this one in green for a reason, but we'll talk about that when we get there. And we had this one little trend on the way up here. We broke it, and then we corrected for a while, and now we're making new highs. I can't remember exactly. We broke it. The new high was right in here, about 10 o'clock, and it was, really about 11 o'clock before it took off again. So that's enough. That's your hour, at least, you're about to, that kind of fits the mold of your trend line, a break, and an hour of correction, and then off it goes again. And so we may just keep trending up all day long. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. And that may mean we need another trend line right up through here or something. Let's just look at that real quick. Kind of fits the highs, and that kind of fits the lows. So yeah, we may have a new trend working here, but you can see this original trend channel line up here still holding. That's, that was easy to find, and this is what I thought was going to be the spike in channel earlier. And you can see I've got this lighter line here, but we broke that and came down here. And so there's a chance that this looks like this is probably the more important one. And we just can't get below the EMA to come back down there and test it. So let's just go over the trades real quick and show you what I saw. There weren't a whole lot of there hadn't been a whole lot of entries, but the ones we've had have been pretty good. We had 3 right out of the gate. Notice you got the strong support here. We had this break lower, prices turned up, and you can see that was just the stem down there, and so you could have gone long right there. It's a second entry long based on the breaks higher, and I get more questions about second entries than anything, and people just try too hard to see them. All you're looking for is you got a new high, so your count's 0, and you're coming down and you find your first bar that goes higher. There it is right there. First entry, then you start moving down again, and here's your second bar that goes higher. That's a second entry right there, counting off that high. So that's a second entry long. But notice what we got here. We got a new low, and we've been trending down, so you can have a 0 count here. First entry, pull back, second entry. This first move is your first entry. And then notice that little break lower, pull back, and so that's a second entry long right there, and that's why I marked it. And then you got kind of the breakout pullback long, but notice this, you got a failed second entry short right there, and then so you got a trap to the short side that rockets. That's what you look for. 2 failed tries to go lower, and then you can see everybody jumped in, boom, and off it goes. And they start running stops, and there's plenty of room still to get out before these highs over here. So any 3 of those entries would have been good, because they're all based on our rules. You got a failed break lower, you've had a little channel and a break, and you're looking for a retest. And I really thought we may sell off after that, but you couldn't ignore the fact that we're still inside a possible bigger channel. So don't be too eager to sell, even like right over here. Don't be eager to sell, because you would have, this is the only short today that probably would have, well, there's two of them here that might have worked out. And notice there's 3 pushes there, and there's 3 pushes on that one. And so that might be your only clue, is your first push up, your pullback, a second push, and then a third push with a little overshoot. First push, second push, and then a third push up. We didn't get an overshoot there, though. We didn't even get back to the trend line there, so that was a little better setup. You know, we shouldn't be taking any shorts though on a trend day like this, because you're apt to get trapped, just like you did in most all of these. You're lucky if you get a scalp, and sure, if you do catch the high, you can make some really good money, but the odds are you're going to get burned. You're only going to catch a high like this and scalp out just enough to keep you trying to figure it out, and in the long run, you're going to lose money. So you got 3 entries there. Then you got another little trading range here, and a pullback or a little break lower that pulls back and tests this breakout right here. And it's like a little 2-legged pullback to this trend line right here. I drew it off those first few swings down through there. Second entry, so it's kind of like a second entry long. It's a little 2-legged pullback. Another easy scalp. No runners. Then a first entry, pullback, second entry. So that's a second entry long. I marked this one in green because notice there's no break lower, there's no trap, and you got all that overlap, and you're so close to the high that if you did want it, and we're not even back to the EMA, it was the first break of that little trend, but there's not a whole lot of room to get out before you get back to this high or even the trend channel line up here. So I marked this one in green, because if you did enter this one, you had to try to sneak in with a limit order, and you could have gotten in a couple of ticks, because this one closed on its high and opened on its high, and so it ticked back 2 ticks. And if you'd entered here or here, if you entered with a stop, you wouldn't have got, I don't think you would have gotten out. Let me just see. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't have. 86.75, and you see it got to 87.75. And then it made a little lower low here, so you probably would have gotten stopped out. So you had to enter this one with a limit order or just leave it alone. And that's why I marked it in green, because it's a little more aggressive. You know, using the limit order is the only way that's the way I entered this trade. And I got out by the skin of my teeth before it pulled back and made a little lower low there. But entering here, I probably would have had my stop below this low, because that's the more important one, and you see we never got below it. So you might have still survived. You might have thought about entering here, but again, I don't like this 1, 2, 3, 4, and then by the time this finished 5, so then they try to take it lower again. Then you got a little trap, and you're probably looking for another push up, because now you got a 1, 2, 3 triple bottom there. And notice how these lows closed over here, and these lows are closing higher. So we're kind of making higher highs and higher lows again in an uptrend. Everything's above the EMA. So this was worth taking here, because you do kind of have a little trap there and a bounce off that support. And that's why I draw these lines, because if you take that line away, it's harder to see that. But look at how it changes it when you push that line up there. And you see that bounce right off that support area, and there's always a chance that this line is still up through there, and after we got the correction here, we're going to get back in there and keep going again. So you know, this might have been right all along, and we may have just had our little break and correction and be going on again. So you just never know what's going to happen. So you can't ignore a trend line going up through there like that. So matter of fact, I'm just going to leave that there for now, because you can see we bounced right off of it there. But this was the first break again prior to the 830 one, and you know, we're still making new highs and we're still going higher. And then we bounced right off of that same line again right there. I didn't like this one as much because of all the overlap. But this is a nice reversal bar. We had this nice bullish bar, it broke one tick higher, and then it pulled back and looked like it was going to take it lower, like they had everybody trapped, and then next thing you know, it closes on its high. You could have gone long here. You really need to make sure you got room to get out before you get back up here or to this line. If you used anything more than one, a limit order across the top, you would have missed this one. So you had to consider how you were going to enter it. You could have entered this one even with a stop and you'd been all right, but it just really was risky with all that overlap right there after an overshoot, because we did get a close outside here and here, not big, it's not really enough to say, hey, we had a strong overshoot of that, but it's still an overshoot, so you had to be careful, and there's only one leg back, so there's not a second, really a good second entry long, and you never know that you're not going to have another leg back and then a run to a new high. So all things you got to consider there. So for that reason, I drew that one in green. It meets our criteria. It's a pull back to the EMA and the trend line. You got them both behind your back there, possibly. I'm still not convinced that this channel here is not down here, but we've never come back to it yet, so we'll just have to see. Maybe it is right here where I originally envisioned it with this shorter line here. I've got it moved off a little bit now, but that's where I originally had it drawn, and you can see that coming into play up through there. So we'll see what happens, but that was really about it today. You were able to get runners off this trade and this trade, but nothing else really. And of course, if you were in this one, you'd still have some runners going here too. So but other than that, there just wasn't a lot of opportunity to enter today. It's been real slow and real methodical, and we'll just have to see. I'm thinking maybe this is the tight channel, and it may be one of those deals where you kind of have a median line, and we may end up coming down here to this lower piece later today. Of course, there's only it's 1 o'clock, a little after 1 o'clock my time while I'm doing this, so still a couple hours left in the trading day to see what happens, but I'd be paying attention to that line right there for now until we see what happens. And if you get a setup off of it, it may be worth taking. But this thing, we're about to hit 1600. Again, we're real close, and my guess is that's where they're trying to take it. So we'll see what happens. But it's just been one of those days, even though it seems like it's, even though it doesn't feel like there's a lot of volume, which there's really not, you can't ignore the trend. And it doesn't matter if it's a low volume or high volume, it's still a trend, and we're still going up. And so don't be trying anything crazy. Just follow the trend, follow our rules. And somebody asked me today, I get this question a lot too, about trading at the 8:30 open and trading during the lunchtime. Okay, I'm sorry, I had a slight interruption there, but I was going to talk about one other thing, a question I get about the lunchtime and the openings. And, I know a lot of people, there does become, right at the open, right around 8:30, the volatility is a little higher, but that's where the best move of the day came from, that and right here at 10:30. So you can't, if you skip trading, then you're going to miss a lot of good trades, but you have to be able to read the price action and follow the price action. And it's clear here that we traded up into to this, and so we had the break. I mean, that's all you could see at that point. Oops. Let me just move this out of the way so you can see what it would have looked like at that point. You can see right there that it's really clear that all we had at that point was a spike in a channel going here. And you can see that fits across the bottoms. And if you copy it, it's going to fit across the top. So there it is, plain as can be. So what you're looking for is a chance to enter and go long. Here we are. Is it 8:30 yet? Let me just see I think it was that bar. Yep, that bar right there. I think we actually opened on this little move down, and we were bouncing right there. And you don't want to be short in here. Would it have worked? 82.50. Yeah, you could have gotten on it, and there really is a failed break higher right there, but it's a dangerous long, and you see it didn't go far. And then you got a second entry here, but it's right at the trend line, right at the EMA. You don't want to be short in there. Odds are it's going to go lower and snap back, and that's what happens. And there's your first entry. It's not a very good setup. It's a doji. It does kind of look like a little two-legged pullback, but it's a doji. It's not a really good setup. Then we bounce off this, and you see it ends as a doji, so still nothing. You got another little inside bar right there, and then finally we break lower on that bar. And so let's see what the next bar. So this one ends kind of bullish after that break lower. So you might have thought about going long right there. That aggressive trader is going to probably take that trade. It's a second entry. Notice the pullback on the bigger picture. It's a first entry right there, and then your next leg down and your second entry right above that bar. So you could have considered going long right there. You see, you could have gotten short as low as almost one tick above the previous support area across there, and now it's working higher. Still working higher, and then you get that little pullback right there. So a break above that would be a second entry, and it's a little fail, and you know, it's like a little failed second entry long almost anyway. And then notice you break higher, and what you might do is try to get in this with a limit order if you can, maybe a tick or two inside. Oops. And notice we had this little trend line working down, then we had a break right there and a new low. So then that's another indication that we're probably, and you got to figure we're going to at least here. So it keeps working higher, and then you kind of get another inside, and there's your little breakout pullback long for all that top right there. If it breaks above that, you definitely, because now you got you got zero down here. Now you've been trending down, so zero. That's how you have a count going in both directions. First entry long, pullback. That's your first entry short. Now a second entry long, a pullback, a failed second entry short, and there's your trap. And it'll break out pullback long, right off the trend line, right off the EMA, just what you want to see. And it takes it a bar, but look at it go. And boy, that was the trade right there. So, so you can't afford to, you know, you just got to follow the price action. And hopefully you can see that was relatively clear, that you know you get a break of that channel, you're going to get a retest, and that's what happened. But we got a whole lot more than that. And at that point, I'm thinking the channel's down here, and it may still be. So now you got this trend line working up, and you got that little two-legged pullback. You don't see any break higher, but if you went to a little smaller chart, you'd see one leg back, a pullback, and then a second leg back. So that's just like a second entry long on a smaller pattern, and it was an easy scalp. And then finally you get the break, a move to a new high, and then you get a correction off of this temporary. This is what I call just a little temporary move within this possible channel. So hopefully you can see that you can't, if you don't trade the morning open, you don't get a chance to enter till after 9 o'clock. And look, it's terrible. It's not a great, I won't say terrible because it works, but you don't get this emotional move you get at the open that makes you all the money. And then somebody else asked me today about trading in the lunchtime, and you notice, look what was happening in the lunchtime right in here. This is right around the lunchtime hour. Then look what it rockets higher. You know, the price action is price action. So if a setup is there and prices are moving, you know, I don't care what time of day it is, except for being late in the afternoon. I'm not trading. I don't like to trade much even after lunchtime, but definitely after about 2:30, there's not a lot of time left in the day. And so if you make a mistake, you just about are not going to make money that day. So that's my only really rule about times of trading, is not trading after about 2:30 in the afternoon. Give yourself about an hour and 15 minutes to work through any current trades you're in. Don't enter any new ones after, you know, 2:30. I like to say really after 12 or 1 o'clock, but the really cutoff rule is about 2:30, because you still have time. If it's 2:30, you still got time, about 45 minutes left in the day to wrap up any trades and for them to work out for you. But there's nothing worse than getting stuck in a trade at 2:45 and then having to exit it by 3 o'clock, 3:15, and finding out that, you know, you just didn't have time for it to go anywhere. or worse than that, making a mistake and having a loser there and then not having any time to make it back. So and notice, again, I drew these little short-term trends. Notice we had this one. We had a little break here, a retest, which all it could do, it couldn't get below that support, and then off it went again. But anyway, back to the key point is trading the openings. You got to be careful with the open. You got to make sure you're reading the price action right. And what I always tell people, it doesn't matter if it's 8:30 in the morning, noontime, or any time in between 8:30 and 3:15. If you're not sure what's going on, stay out of the market. That's the key to it. If you're not sure, if you're reading the price action and you're finding the lines in the channel and you're pretty confident in what's going on, don't skip a trade just because of what time it is. Go for it, because that's when your good moves come. So hopefully that makes sense to you, that just don't do something dumb. If you're guessing, if you didn't see this spiking channel here with the little possible break, or the possible line being down here, then no, don't be entering down here. But if you saw that, it's what's going to happen. 9 times out of 10, we're going to come back up and make a new high. And it's amazing how many people probably got trapped right here on this short, this little failed break lower. I guarantee you there's probably some people watching this video that got trapped short right there when you need to be thinking about being long, because we're looking for a retest. Now, you don't always know when the move is over, but that's why I draw these little trend lines, because the same trend lines that work on the bigger picture work on the micro level too. They're not always as accurate or easy to see, but there's one right there, and then we broke, closed outside it and turned down and made a new low really right there, and then off it went. And so this one, we were coming down, we broke it right there. Then we made a double bottom. We came back down right there and tested that low. We couldn't make a new one. Then we came back down and tested it again. So guess what? You got a double bottom and really a triple bottom on a broader pattern. So then off it goes up again. So the EMA on a strong trend like this comes into play over and over and over. And eventually it'll get below it a little bit. But it's very rare that it's going to stay above it all day and then turn down and start going. Doesn't mean it couldn't happen, but it just doesn't happen very often. So pay attention. I mean, it's obvious that EMA it got a little flat right here, but you know what to expect and you know why it's getting flat. And then look, it's been up. It got a little flat right here again, same kind of thing. But it's really, it's obvious that EMA is pointed up all day, and where the majority of all your bars are all above it. That's an uptrend. It's going from the left side of your screen to the right side at about a 45-degree angle. Perfect setups. That's the kind of trend you want to see. I'd like to see a little more volume and see it moving quicker, but nothing we can do about that. So trade what you see and trade smartly and follow the rules, and it does work. So hope you had a good trading day today. It was a little slow, but there were some really good setups, the ones I've got marked here. And a couple of more aggressive ones. I didn't mark any shorts today. There were only 2 that probably would have worked. This one, actually there was one here before they opened, but after the open you got 1, 2 that would have worked. Maybe you'll get another one up here. You notice how each time we break higher, this time we went a lot further. This time we didn't go as far. That's starting to, if the next one just barely breaks above, that's a good sign that maybe it's getting time to maybe roll over a little bit. And I'm still not convinced that this is not the channel right here, and we had this break and then a correction or whatever. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. But my guess is we may come back and test this line here before it's over today. We'll just have to see. So I'm going to wrap it up. That's about all there is to talk about today. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. We're kind of getting into 25 minutes here, so it's been plenty today anyway. But somebody asked me about the second entries. Hopefully you could see those second entries that I talked about. I do get a lot of questions about those, and what happens is people think that second entries are some magical secret that nobody knows about, and a lot of people don't know about them, but all it is the market moves in twos, and you were looking for 2 legs in one direction, and then so if the market's trending up, we're looking for 2 legs of correction, and then trend resume. That's all they are. 2 legs of correction, trend goes on. And then you got 2 legs of correction and the trend goes on. Here's 1 leg, 2 leg, and then the trend starts back. That's all second entries really are. Is 2 legs here and then 2 legs there, and or 2 tries to test the low that failed and they go higher, or 2 times to test the high and you fail and you go lower, but the trend is up. So we're only looking for reasons to get long at the EMA, and the trend line are strong support. That's what we're doing today because the trend's been up. And look, strong support, EMA, trend line, strong support, EMA, EMA. So look, that's where all the setups were. At strong support or the EMA or the trend line. And that's what you're looking for to get on with the trend until there's a reason for it to change. And you might have been looking for it to change here, but there's no real reason to go short. You know, you almost always have to wait on a good second entry when the trend has been up. And you got a first entry here, and look at there's a second entry right there, but it's a terrible setup. You had this little trend line coming up through here. Now you got a first entry short, and you got a second entry short here. But look, you got that strong support right there, so it wasn't a good place to be getting, and all that overlap, not a good place to be entering short, not with the trend being up. And guess what? They trapped everybody. And then you come back to the EMA again. It doesn't even look very good. It's not a perfect setup, but guess where it went? It went up with the trend. That's what happens. So they try to trick you into getting in on the wrong side, and the whole time it just keeps going with the trend. So keep that in mind. But I'm going to wrap it up. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.